Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Afsana, and you are listening to the first episode of the TCI podcast. How are you doing? Hope you're doing very well in your lives. So, listeners, today we would be talking about having difficult conversations and also the writer's block. As we know that addressing difficult topics and having difficult conversations is not everyone's cup of tea. A few days back, I was either having a conversation with someone or I was reading it somewhere. I do not clearly remember, but it was about difficult conversations. And it said that by training yourself to start uncomfortable conversations, you liberate others to have the conversations they've been desperately wanting to have themselves. Interesting. You could say this is largely what leadership is all about, the willingness to risk your own neck in a way that benefits others. And as they say, emotions are the single most relatable thing out there. They represent a kind of unspoken bond that we share, but for some reason, we're often reluctant to acknowledge. And I really think communication helps in building that bond. Interestingly, a few days ago, I came across John Mayer's definition of writer's block, and I really wanted to share it with you all. I think that was on my Twitter timeline, and but I found it really interesting. For those who don't know, Mayer is an American singer, songwriter, and a guitarist. His definition of the writer's block is literally one of the best that I've come across so far. And he said, writer's block, it is when the two people inside of you, the writer and the reader, when the reader doesn't love the writer or when the listener doesn't love the player. And so, writer's block is not a failure to write, it is a failure to catch this feedback loop of enjoying what you are seeing and wanting to contribute more to it, right? So, writer's block for him doesn't happen as often as it does for other people because he thinks that he knows when is he ready to sit down and go for it. Very interesting though. And I was thinking that communication is an art in itself, it is not just a skill. Yeah, it can be learned, but a lot of it is something that really is God gifted. You can teach it, you can learn it, but to a limit. And I think it is something really very interesting to talk about and discuss because there are a lot of people who think that they can do anything by learning it or by planning it. But there's also a limit to it. For example, I wanted to start this podcast actually in September, but a week ago, but it didn't happen because I got unwell and whatever. So there are people who think that they can plan creative content and plan its execution and plan its timing and plan its success and plan its outreach and on and on and on. And they think that if they know the tricks of the trade, they can make it happen anyway. But what I feel is that if you do it in a calculated way, it is going to be a product which is formula driven. On the other side, if you let your creative bone go into it, it is going to be different and it is definitely going to go a long way. Also, as journalists, we do the difficult talks and discussions, and sometimes we do come across issues and topics which are considered taboo in a society that we live in. But still, we hold those conversations. Sometimes the urge to hold those conversations comes from within us. Sometimes we are told to do it, and sometimes we are trained to do it. We are trained to dig out and tell uncomfortable truths and realities. And we are at times expected to carry out difficult conversations on behalf of others as well, because, be it because of our access, be it because of the position that we are in, but this is what it is and this is how it is. And at times we are unable to we are able to actually liberate others who have been in a need to hold conversations. And if you're able to do it, it is not just liberating for them who need certain things to be talked about but can't, but also for oneself. And I can give you many examples of it, maybe in another episode of this podcast. Years ago, I was at a training, and it was about editing for different platforms. And the master trainer had come all the way from the US. Fortunately, I was part of that group. I was able to learn from her, and also from my colleagues from across the country. One thing which she said, and it has stayed in my mind since then, is that editing is basically liberating the copy of all the factual and grammatical errors and serving the reader. And in order to serve the reader, you probably need to simplify the information as well. For example, breaking down numbers, breaking down big chunks of information, simplifying it, simplifying the language, and all and on and on. And communication as a whole is very much like that as well. Uh, yeah, you have to keep in mind the target audience, um, and the aim is to convey the message in an effective manner. So, listeners, I would really like you to be a part of this podcast, and I would love to know what do you think about primarily having difficult conversations. You may conveniently drop a comment below and let us know what do you think about having difficult conversations. Some people are of the view that one should not fight all the battles that come their way. They believe in choosing their battles wisely. But some people are daring enough and bold enough to do it, not just for themselves, but for others as well. And yeah, do share if you have had a chance to have a difficult conversation of any sort. It can be anything literally, ranging from poor work performance, poor grades, terminating a contract, the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, anything. And I think it is very liberating to have such conversations. We don't really focus on it, but it is very liberating, and it is very important to have such conversations at times. At times, through those difficult conversations, we are able to find a closure, and at times it is not about our liberation from any emotion, let's say. It is about others' liberation as well. So I think it is important to have conversations that we may be finding difficult. We can't just say, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to communicate it. Maybe you need time, but eventually you have to do it. So do share if you have had a chance of being a part of any such conversations with your friends, family, or maybe any other person. And at times I feel it is really easy to hold such conversations, some difficult conversations, with people that we really don't know, or we don't stand a chance of meeting them again in our lives. It is easier to vent. And also, do let us know, how were you able to do it, how much time did it take to happen, did you fail, did you succeed, how did your life improve after that. Anything, any details that you would like to share. And yeah, sure, somewhere down the lane we would be talking about having and actually navigating through difficult conversations. So do give us your feedback on today's podcast. I'll be waiting for your comments and suggestions, and do reach out if you would like to be a part of this podcast. Bye bye, take care.